When one door opens, when one door closes, another one opens. But we often look so long and so regretfully at the door that closed that we fail to see the doors that open for us. Insightful words from our friend Alexander Graham Bell, don't you think? You know what they say, hindsight is 20/20. How often do we look back on our lives and regret things that happened without realizing the doors that opened because of those things that happened? I could have done this if that would have happened. I would have been like this if that had not happened. I should have made a different decision. It's human nature to have regrets, and it's human nature to look back on your life and think about what it would be like now if other things had happened. Recently, I happened upon a South Park episode that introduced the latest and greatest superhero to hit the pop culture scene, Captain Hindsight. How many of you have heard of Captain Hindsight? Well, for those of you that haven't, the Urban Dictionary defines him as a stupid-ass superhero from the South Park episode who flies around the world providing hindsight after every catastrophe, but does very little to help. Captain Hindsight and his trusty sidekicks, coulda, woulda, and shoulda, don't do a whole lot to prevent problems from happening. They just arrive at the scene after the fact and complain about what they coulda, shoulda, and woulda done to prevent the catastrophe in the first place. Don't we all have a little bit of those superhero qualities in us? Don't we all complain just a little bit and think about what we coulda, woulda, and shoulda done if things had been differently? I could have been a movie star if I had moved to LA instead of going to college. I would have been a great tennis player if my mom and dad hadn't made me take piano. I should have gone down the groomer rather than that chute when I would have dislocated my shoulder. Now be honest, every single one of you, every single one of us spends time looking back and regretting things that happened or didn't happen, rather than realizing all the good things that came to us and all the doors that opened because of those things that happened or didn't happen. I look back on my life and I think about how things would have been differently if things had happened in a different manner. When I was in high school, my mother wanted me to go to a career in a year school instead of a four-year college. So being the dutiful daughter that I was, I did what I was told. I was in National Honor Society. I was in top 10% of my class. I had tons of extracurricular activities. I often resent my sisters and my brother and the high school counselor for not encouraging me to go to a four-year school. After I finished that career in a year school, I got a job at a hotel in St. Louis. It was a brand new hotel, and it was one of the first ones to be computerized. Kind of tells you how old I am, doesn't it? But I was so mesmerized by these boxes. I was so intrigued by these machines that did so much work for me that I mustered up the courage and I applied and was accepted into the University of Missouri, and I got my double E degree. While in college, I met my sweetheart, Scott, and we married shortly after graduation. Scott was in the Navy, and we got stationed in San Diego. So being the dutiful American citizen that I am, I left St. Louis for San Diego. The fact that it was February in the middle of an ice storm had a little bit to do with my decision. While in San Diego, I decided to pursue my master's. So the first night of class at San Diego State, I was rushing around trying to find the classroom. I was so lost. I regretted not giving myself enough time and not paying attention to the map. Yet I met another girl who was equally lost looking for the same classroom. And Elizabeth and I became great friends. Sadly, my marriage to Scott ended after about 3 years, but Elizabeth was a great source of comfort and support for me. In fact, she introduced me to her friend Carolyn, who needed a roommate. I needed a place to stay. So I moved in with Carolyn, and she eventually became one of my very best friends. While I was living with Carolyn, my sister and her husband, who was in the Army, got stationed in Germany. So I thought, great, I'm going to go to Germany. I'm going to have a free place to stay. I'm going to have a built-in tour guide. But then I got a job offer that I could not refuse. So I put aside my plans to go to Germany and accepted this job. But during the time I was supposed to be in Germany, Carolyn took me to a party where I met my future husband, Steve. Steve and I got married a few years later and have two amazing, smart, and beautiful daughters who rock my world. In 2006, we packed up everything, kit, caboodle, and kids, and moved to Park City. And that's where I am today. After 14 years, that marriage ended. And divorce is always hard. And I so often look back with regret, wondering what I coulda, woulda, or shoulda done to save that marriage. Do I regret putting my girls through what I put them through? I drug them from San Diego. I took them away from their friends. I took them away from their school, from their childhood home. I brought them to this strange place where they didn't know anybody and they had to start school in an environment as the new kid. I think about that a lot. Then I look back and think, if I had gone to the 4-year college right after school, I would not have worked at that hotel, and I probably wouldn't have gotten my electrical engineering degree. I know I wouldn't have met Scott, and I would not have moved to San Diego. If I had not been late for my class, I wouldn't have met Elizabeth. If I had not gone to that party with Carolyn and gone to Germany instead, I might not have met Steve. And if I had not met Steve, I might not be in Park City. And I truly believe I'm in Park City because that's where I'm supposed to be, right here and right now. I want you guys to close your eyes for just a second and think about something that you often regret. Think about it. Now think about all the wonderful things that happened to you because of that thing that either didn't happen or that did happen that you regret. Every single thing that happens in our life, whether it's good or bad, every decision we make, whether it's right or wrong, has brought us where we're supposed to be, right here, right now. It has introduced us to people who are important to our life and who have given us opportunities and experiences and inspiration and support and courage. And had those things that had not happened, happened, or if those things that happened had not happened, we wouldn't have met those people. We wouldn't have had those experiences. We wouldn't have had those doors open. We would not be where we're supposed to be, right here, right now. So I challenge each of you to forget Captain Hindsight. Forget the coulda, wouldas, and shouldas, and instead ignore the closed doors and appreciate and be grateful for the doors that did open, that brought you where you were supposed to be, right here, right now.